New Alan Wake 2 update is great for scaredy cats like me. Corrected. The original title was New Alan Wake 2 update is great for babies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Developer Remedy Entertainment is adding an option to cut down on the jump scares. Alan Wake 2's fifth Alan Wake's 1.15 update is now live on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. It fixes a ton of bugs, improves some visual issues, and also adds an option to make the game a little less scary. Importantly, it may also render the game more playable for those with certain sensitivities to flashing lights. Launched last November, Alan Wake 2 was the long awaited, highly anticipated sequel to 2010's Alan Wake. We have at Kotaku love Remedy's spooky follow up, calling it the best game of 2022 and one of the best survival horror games ever made. The story of writer Alan Wake and his fight against the darkness and all the creepy monsters lurking inside continued in Alan Wake 2, but unlike the first game, which was more of an action focused shooter, the sequel was a much scarier experience. Perhaps for some folks out there, it was too scary. On January 31st, Remedy announced the latest update for Alan Wake 2. Update 1.15 was now live across all platforms. It's a big update, bringing some welcome performance improvements and adding some much needed features, including a chapter select menu and easily and accessible POV slide or FOV slider on PC. But the most interesting addition in this update is a new setting that might take the games a bit less jump scary. Added option to choose between Lu and normal horror flash visual and audio intensity. A frequently used technique in Alan Wake 2 is to flash a few close ups of disturbing looking characters or other images on the player screen to scare them and make them feel uncomfortable. Often those are
Mm.
accompanied by a loud, unsettling noise or music cue. The flashes were very scary and were used to effectively keep players on their toes. And for some players sensitive to flashing lights, the effect may have been a serious problem, so it's great that this option has been added.
Mm.
Luckily, I don't have a sensitivity to flashing lights, and of course, this had to keep scrolling. And as for the horror aspects, I can totally handle the unsettling effects of those jump scares. They don't frighten me one bit. Sure, I mean, yeah, I might have dropped my controller once or twice during some really harrowing moments, and yeah, sure, yeah, I maybe had to take a break or two when things got too scary and intense, but I'm not a weenie, not at all. Still, maybe I'll check out this new setting when I go back to play Alan Wake 2's New Game Plus mode, just to check it out, not because I'm scared or anything, not at all. Quit asking. Correction. It says correction came on February 1st. This post previously disregarded the accessibility implications of this update. It has been updated to acknowledge those implications. Kotaku regrets the error. So let's look at some comments. And then I'll ask Dr. Games 101 what he thinks. Because, it's not like Alan Wake should be like Resident Evil. Alan Wake was all about like psychological um, storytelling, not be the next Resident Evil. Okay, so I'm looking for the comment section. It's just giving me more crap. Okay, so I can't find the comments. Anyway, what do you think of this update?
Well, if the babies out there, like the SJW stuff like that, they're like, "Oh my god, it's too much flashy effects," which I kind of understand the cause of epilepsy, where it's
Right.
too many flashy objects. That's what they did with the Pokemon episode with the Porygon shit. Excuse my language, but the Porygon Pokemon, where it was too flashy to the point that kids were getting epilepsies in Japan and the United States at that time. This is back like 30 years ago when this happened. So they got rid of the episode altogether from the archive or the history of the Pokemon episodes. Unless if it's still there, you can find certain pockets on the web for that specific episode if you can find it, though. Um, that's just one example. So I can understand that. But anything with more like the intensity of the scare jumps and stuff like that, if you're over 25, 30 years old, you should have no problem taking that kind of crap. So as long as you don't get blood pressure to the point of like heart attacks, whatever, that can be a problem right there. You don't want you have your game too intensely like scared to the point of heart attacks because there's this one episode on the TV show Black Mirror where the guy was afraid of his own mother so much in that simulation that he died within like not even 1 second after playing the game of that specific game. Whatever he was like the Kojima of the games of the scary movies at the time. In my perspective, that is. So it's kind of like that moment, you know. But if it's like Alan Wake 2, it should be like a cakewalk, you know, in a sense, to understand those jump scares and stuff. So, no.
Oh, okay. I did finally get to the comments, so I'm just gonna read a few of them.
Yeah, sure.
AK Blind goes, jump scares are a cheap crutch. The game doesn't need them. Killy the Bid goes, explain why you repeat that nonsense. And Baz goes, I remember Saga and I at the exact same time saying, for fuck's sake, in complete unison, at a completely self aware and cheap jump scare that I'm sure neither of us was even slightly rattled by. The game starts leaning into these to the point of memory later on. Um, and then people defending the jump scares. Again, Alan Wake doesn't need them. If you're doing, the strengths. This is what I hate about games, modern games today. They
Mm-hmm.
completely missed the point on what made the first game so great.
Mm-hmm.
There was no jump scares in the first Alan Wake. There were no jump scares in American Nightmare. Um, what was the strength behind those games was the story. You wanted to see how the story was going to progress, how the story was going to continue.
Oh yeah.
But no, unfortunately, I guess we need jump scares. Like I said, leave the jump scares for games like Resident Evil.
South Hill,
Yeah,
especially that game.
Doom. If there's ever going to be another Doom game. Um, okay, those really weren't jump scares. That was basically just an army of monsters. Um,
Yeah.
but I brought that up because Doom used to scare me as a kid. Um,
Yeah, definitely did scare me at times too when I was a kid. Doom.
like I said, I hated those imps. Those were the pink monsters, by the way. Um, and then I didn't even know about the invisible monsters until I got older.
Mm.
So anyway, yeah. So I mean, my opinion, go back to storytelling. Also, from what Doctor Games 101 has said, from what he heard, go back to making the story about Alan Wake.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't include a random black female police officer for fuck's sake. You know, it's like I don't mind the secondary character to be in the game, whatever, especially if they're connected through other means and ends. But Alan Wake is called Alan Wake for a reason. The games, so
yeah, I mean, if you look at the first Alan Wake, basically Barry came like after the first chapter or the first episode, if you want to call it that. Um, and the female cop that wasn't sure if Alan Wake had killed his wife or not. She was also kind of heavily in the story, but it was still all about Alan Wake.
hmm
Barry and that cop were support, and the other people were supporting cast.